Dear members of the jury, members of the organization, TAS, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all congratulate the colleagues here at the first row, present here today as winners in the other categories. And let me of course thank the jury, headed by Martin French, for their decision to choose H+N+S to be this year's winner in the category office. I would like to state also on behalf of my partners, Nicole Dietz, Peter Schengega, that we are very proud of this acknowledgement. Mainly because of the high quality of the offices listed on the Lila Award long list. To be selected from a group of so many highly respected international colleagues makes us feel humble, honored and thankful at the same time. My thanks also go out to our team, the people at the office, including the people that flew out since the office was founded in 1990. Without them, this achievement would not have been possible. Special thanks go to founding fathers Lodewijk van Nieuwenhuizen and Dick Simons, together with Jan-Dirk Hoekstra, all visible here, as the former directors of our office, who have recently stepped down but are fortunately still active in the office in the role of special advisor. It is their legacy that is awarded today. The current work and stature of H+N+S is inseparable from the firm's development in the past 25 years. And with this legacy captured in our collective memory at H+N+S, we look to the future with confidence. Sure, a lot of challenges in society have to be faced, with the effects of climate change and the enormous task of the energy transition, to name only a few. And yes, our profession plays a huge role in coping with these major tasks, showing society possible ways out. We try indeed to be, also in the coming 25 years, as the jury states, and here I can quote the jury, but I will not read it because you've just read this already. I'm sure you can all read it. This indeed is our task, and we're looking forward to it, optimistic as we are by nature. But how? How do we try to do this? And I could again quote the jury, for they have formulated it quite precise. H+N+S has, through an engineering approach, successfully developed large-scale thinking about landscape, integrating aspects concerning energy, environment, well-being and aesthetics. They feature a consistent opus of brave interventions in landscape, often with ingenious and innovative solutions. 3 words stand out for me in these 2 sentences: brave, ingenious, innovative. These 3 words offer me the perfect opportunity to determine and describe to you the typical H+N+S approach and capture our office. Let me do that. Let's elaborate this a bit further and start with the first one, brave. H+N+S is an extraordinary office, quite a special group of around 25 landscape professionals, mainly landscape architects. It's one of the biggest concentrations of landscape architects in the Netherlands. And in Holland we have the name of being a bit stubborn and making things complicated. If you call H+N+S for a simple question or a simple project, you will surely get a complex and extensive broad answer. That's the feeling that goes around in the field to Costa, and I think they're right. We do have the tendency to look at things in a broad perspective, to first take a step backward for the necessary overview, to dive into archives or library, to field work and research, and to test before moving forward. We even have the tendency to tell the client that he or she asked us the wrong question. We regularly ask our commissioner to give us extra time to do this thorough research and pay us for this as well. And in some cases, we get no for an answer. but often decide to do it anyway, which means we have to invest in it ourselves. In other cases, a competition is the vehicle for this. This was the case in 1985, and out of this competition came Plan Stork from Ooivaart, winning entry for the first EOYS competition, a Dutch competition introduced especially for stimulating regional design. And this eventually led to the startup of H+N+S a few years later. This was also the case in 2014 with the 10th edition of this same EOYS competition, in which we were again successful. Now not with a regional plan for the future of the central Dutch river area, but with a plan for an energy-neutral region in the east of the Netherlands. Sometimes we even operate as our own commissioner and organize our research projects ourselves, looking for a way to at least co-finance them to limit the investments for H+N+S. Doing thorough research, getting the bigger picture, takes, of course, time. Time you sometimes don't have in a busy practice or don't easily get because of a strict time schedule derived from a fixed planning. But investment pays off in the end. It brings us a step further, not only in the concerned project, but by doing this we also develop knowledge and insights that help us in other projects and brings the office further in other ways. This way of working, of éducation permanente, helps us to stay in the front of the professional debate in the Netherlands, be it in the fields of ecology, nature development, water management, culture, history, or sustainability. It shows, for example, in recent studies on important and relevant topics like the energy transition or the protection and reuse of our cultural heritage. Our last study, named the Energy Line, Energielinie, just recently presented at the Dutch Landscape Triennial, is actually about both, combining the topics of energy transition with cultural heritage. With the concept of the energy line, or climate fortification, you can also say, we researched the possibilities of taking the historic defense line of the Nieuwe Hollandse Waterlinie, running through 3 Dutch provinces, and use it for generating renewable energy, and by doing that, revive, revitalize, and protect it. Conservation by development. This study has led to strong discussions because of the nomination of this same Nieuwe Hollandse Waterlinie as military heritage and nominated as UNESCO monument. It divides the experts from the Dutch Cultural Heritage Agency into 2 camps, with supporters and opponents. It touches the issue of our cultural heritage right at heart, protecting it by reusing, developing and amalgamating it with another social task, in this case the energy transition, and by doing so, changing the historic landscape. The study of the energy line, the work of a team led by colleague Yvonne Dietz, stands on the shoulders of numerous works of the H+N+S concerning the energy transition. Dirk was the first in our office and in our professional field, at least in the Netherlands, I would add, to stress the importance of the energy transition and the urge to research its impact on our landscape, with the effects of the many windmills, PV panels, and so forth needed for the shift from fossil fuels to sustainable sources. Quite some years ago, Dirk already asked for a widespread attention, not only for sustainable energy production, question how to fit it in our landscape, but also for ways of smartly transporting and buffering the generated energy. Dirk raised the importance of this matter, catapulting it into the professional debate as State Advisor for the Landscape in the period 2004-2008, deepening it in 2014 with his book Energy and Landscape, the result of years of research at H+N+S and the Technical University of Delft. and ultimately influencing the political debate by entering the arena with his magnum opus, An Energetic Odyssey, presented at the International Architecture Biennale Rotterdam in 2016, and separately to a group of European ministers, as you can see here, shortly after. The title of the project, 2050, An Energetic Odyssey, is meant to provoke. People easily underestimate the scale of the challenge and think that the transition can take place with the support of small-scale projects alone. However, the goal agreed upon worldwide to limit global warming to 1.5 to 2 degrees requires more large-scale and more drastic changes of the system. An Energetic Odyssey shows that the next economy, the theme of the International Architecture Biennale in Rotterdam 2014, can be a clean economy. It shows how far-reaching the energy transition from fossil fuels to such as oil, coal and gas to an energy supply largely fed by renewable energy sources actually is. It's a spatial task that is still largely underestimated. On land, we will have to pull out all the stops in terms of energy saving, central and decentral initiatives with solar panels, wind, biomass, geothermal and residual heat and so on. Even making a maximum effort, this will prove inadequate. The good news, however, is that in principle, the production of North Sea energy can meet the demand. An Energetic Odyssey represents a system leap that makes it possible to bridge this gap by the large-scale production of wind energy on the relatively shallow North Sea for the countries that surround it. The study, these terms here in this image, demonstrates what such an ambitious approach involves, what infrastructure it requires, what it means to link up with the nature of the North Sea, what role the entrepreneurial state plays, which innovations this requires, and especially which new economic dynamic chances this will generate. For instance, in the offshore sector. The project aims to create a new reference point for a broad dialogue between public and private parties and a new appealing step towards realization of large-scale production, transportation and storage of renewable energy on and around the North Sea. You can check our website for an instructive video about this project if you want. This attitude of continuously asking questions, researching, doubting an in itself logic solution, trying to find an even better answer, simpler, more appropriate, is in our system at H+N+S. It's under our skin. It not only shows in our research activities, but also pops out in more concrete design projects. Take, for example, the project of the National Military Museum on the former military airfield of Soesterberg, for which we designed a 45-hectare outside area. In the output specifications, we were asked to build a 2-meter-high fence around the terrain for safety reasons, which makes sense with numerous guns and other military stuff inside this museum. Being situated in the heart of the former airfield, now a nature and recreation area, we strongly hesitated to propose this fence, also because this would have a huge negative impact on the experience of the new museum, a splendid building designed by architect Van Wageningen. We as designers felt there had to be a better solution, still working as required functionally, but part of the integral design. So we asked, stubborn as we are, or you can also say unbelievably positive and naive, we asked the Commissioner if we could organize the same level of security in a different way, which in the end would have to lead to an official change in the tender output specifications. This asked for thorough research, a wide perspective and close cooperation, an integral way of working, and yes, again, it asked a lot of time. A real integral approach always does take time, convincing everybody concerned what the extra or added value of the alternative is, and it requires persistence. The best option is not always the easiest one, but it shows. In the end, we proposed two alternatives, one on each side of the museum, fitting in the landscape and giving extra meaning to the landscape, telling the story of this historic military landscape and the historic relation between military and the landscape. Looking from the museum inside out, there is not a visible safety measure. On both sides, it blends in the landscape. On the side of the former airfield, we proposed a trench of a few hundred meters, referring to the military trenches we just heard about, which also fits the scale of the surrounding landscape and the scale of the building. Everything here is big. The trench actually works as a ha-ha. We also heard something about it. A ha-ha in the tradition of the English landscape style. It is actually invisible from the museum. Sorry, I cannot show it. It's invisible, giving the visitor the impression that aircrafts and carriers can still roll to the platforms and airstrip and can take off at any moment. It adds to the magic of the place. But on the other side of the building, the side of the entrance, we used the topography with some local differences in height, big difference in the Netherlands, a few meters, to prevent the necessity of a fence. Here we gratefully accepted the presence of this difference, only a few meters in height, by concentrating it on one place. We introduced a wall of gabions, filled with reused bricks of this former airbase. The gabions automatically lead the visitors to the museum entrance. They also prevent people from leaving the path in a nature area in development, are a hiding place for birds and other small animals, and also add to the story of the military museum. Because gabions in Dutch, called schanskorven, are literally translated baskets to hide behind. They are, as a matter of fact, they originate from the medieval battlefields as transportable hiding places and are even visible inside the museum, in the museum exhibitions. The museum experience, therefore, already starts outside. It is this proposal, the decision not to realize this 2-meter fence, but to replace it by hundreds of meters of ha-ha on the side of the former landing strip and by a retaining wall on the other side of the museum, of which I am the most proud. The most important design part is not visible. And that is, I think, typical for H+N+S. We might be brave in the way we work, but our designs are quite reserved, modest. We leave the bling-bling to others. H+N+S strives to come up with simple, convincing solutions that work for complex questions, not complex, expressive designs for simple questions. This brings me to the second term, ingenious first. H+N+S is indeed an office of engineers, striving for ingenious plans that work. Most of our professionals have an engineer's degree and a technical background, with the majority of our people trained at Wageningen University in Delft. With this technical background, we approach the design process. Our design philosophy is research-based and research-funded on the understanding how the landscape works. H+N+S is an office that tries to be active on all possible skill levels, from national and regional to local planning and site design, and in all possible fields, from water management to nature development, from energy transition to infrastructure, from cultural heritage to sustainable development or landscape. This doesn't mean we know everything. As a matter of fact, we know quite well what we're good at and where our professional knowledge ends. This means in almost all projects we work in close cooperation with partners, using their skills and their expertise to enrich the research of our design. In the period of over 25 years, we have built a network of partners we like to cooperate with, representing a rich bouquet of expertise in the fields of ecology and hydrology. For if it gets complicated, we call the real engineers. But also in the fields of architecture and urban design, calculation, detailing, realization, management, and so forth. Cooperation is a key word at H+N+S, both internally in our office and externally. This big span width, of course, asks for a certain office size. In our case, around 25, 26, 27 people, with members of staff with specialized knowledge in the fields I just mentioned. It enables us to communicate with the experts, speak their language. It also enables us as an office to really understand the technical program of demands, and from there we can try to turn it around, to work with it, to change it. The project for the dike improvement of After de Drummel marks this clearly in the office history. It's from the beginning period. This H+N+S attitude is an engineering approach, as I said. We try to understand the system, try to grasp how it works technically. From that, we shape it, guide it, design it, leading to funded research-based designs that work. We approach the landscape as a system of layers that work closely together, affect each other. To analyze and describe the landscape system, we use the so-called layer approach. The first layer forms the basis of the landscape. It consists of soil, water, and ecosystems. The second layer is the network layer, roads, waterways, energy infrastructure, for example. And the third layer consists of the occupation and use of the landscape in terms of living, working, recreation, etc. These layers interact, of course, with one another. But each layer develops within a distinct time frame. The first layer, soil, water, and ecosystem, develops very slowly. Whereas the third layer, occupation, can develop and shift completely in only a few decades. In this context, the assignments in this pre-H+N+S period helped to develop the Casco concept, or framework concept, which starts with a strong landscape framework that forms the basis for the system and safeguards enduring qualities. This framework can then be filled with different, more dynamic functions that can and will develop and adjust over time. A principle also applied in the already mentioned Plan Stork for the first AO bias competition, from which our office emerged. In this Plan Stork, firstly, the choice was made for a strong ecological network as a framework instead of pieces of nature as relics of an old historic and agrarian landscape. And secondly, Plan Stork positioned the creation of new nature as something that could be made by man, as a cultural act, by introducing the right basic conditions and dynamics. The result was a new kind of robust nature shaped by natural dynamics and a nature that could maintain itself. Our office takes the landscape forming powers and processes such as soil formation, hydrology, natural dynamics, infrastructure development, and occupation as the basis for our designs. In the 17th century, the Dutch Golden Age, the concept for the layout and design of the Beemster folder was based on the soil, hydrology, and the technical knowledge of civil engineering at that time. It also was a reaction on the danger of the nature, with a huge uncontrollable water body in the center of Holland and the Randstad area, called the water wolf, really threatening the cities in Holland. The Beemster, therefore, is a symbol for the submission, the the subordination of nature by man. And the design also reflects that total control. But times have changed since then. We now see nature as our friend. Use natural forces. This is the best seen in the case of the project of the Zandmotor or sand engine, of which H+N+S feeded the original idea, using the power of sea and wind to distribute the suppletion sand along the Dutch coastline to exactly the places where it's needed the most. This also is the case for the H+N+S plans for the room for the river projects of Nijmegen, Kampen, indicated here on the slide. Using the dynamics of the river system in this case, combining it with new demands and at the same time incorporating ecological and cultural values. Room for the River is a national project that started over a decade ago. It deals with improving safety, prevent flooding, together with improving environmental quality, a so-called double target. Ecological quality, landscape use possibilities, and economic significance will benefit not only in rural areas but also in a number of cities along the rivers like Kampen and Nijmegen. We are involved from the initial ideas through to completion of designing new river landscapes in this Room for the River program. In, for example, the river of Nijmegen recently finished in Kampen, now under construction. The Dutch Delta, as you can see here, is part of the major catchment basin of the Rhine River. Rainwater and melting water from the Alps in Germany pass through our country on their way to the sea, and a substantial part of the Netherlands lies below sea level and river levels. This means we have to consider the constant threat of flooding, with danger coming from the sea with rising sea levels and from the big rivers with heavy rainfalls occurring more often. For many centuries, the water system has been controlled and continually adapted. The Dutch landscape is actually one big prosthesis of dikes, pumping stations and regulated waterways that protect us and in which we place great trust. But as our climate changes, more water will flow through our rivers, coming from Germany and Central Europe. That will lead to higher water levels that will also occur more frequently. In the meantime, economic development and population will continue to grow. The likelihood of flooding will increase, as will the effect of floods. During the 90s, a number of extremely high water levels occurred in the Netherlands in quick succession. Although no dikes actually burst or flooded, the situation was critical in multiple places and major evacuation procedures were set in motion as a precaution. In the years that followed, huge efforts were made to strengthen many of the dikes. And before the program of Room for the River, raising dikes was the common approach of the Dutch to counter the threat of water. But this is not easy to realize anymore in an intensely used Dutch landscape, with often buildings located on the dikes and limited space in the immediate surroundings to raise the height of the dikes. Relocating the dikes closer to the river, where there usually is some space, only increases, often only will increase the water levels, and this makes the problem only worse. So the need was felt for an alternative strategy to ensure the security of the region of the major rivers. A strategy in which high water levels were not taken as a given, but were prevented by providing more room for the river. A strategy in which spatial quality was a second equally important aim. This marked a turning point in the centuries-old development of the rivers, which has seen the area they occupy gradually reduced. Instead of less room, there is now more space, more room for the river. And in the case of Nijmegen, a hydrological bottleneck has been solved, realizing a bypass, a completely new piece of river. A mirrored river, creating an urban park for the expanding city of Nijmegen on the other side of the river Waal at the same time. Pictures of the old situation compared with the new, I think, tell the whole story. In the Room for the River project we carry out, like Nijmegen, creating conditions is the central theme. The role of the landscape architect focuses on creating conditions in which the landscape can develop and grow. Responding to natural processes is therefore more important than creating fixed forms. However, this does not mean that nature merely follows its own course. If the right conditions are created, nature can also be created. The emphasis on natural development in the Room for the River program testifies to this. Accordingly, landscape design is always layered and is the result of interaction between various interventions and processes over time, only partly predictable. This approach calls for a special type of design in which the hard engineering as well as the development of landscape with its vegetation and morphology change over time. In some cases, the river dynamics also even color the architectural design. In the case of the Zalige Bridge, for example, designed together with mixed architects, the river dynamics lead to a special design that changes with the water levels of the river in the changing seasons. The urban river park in Nijmegen is certainly not finished after the contractor has gone. In fact, it has only begun. The vegetation just begins to grow and the water begins to shape the land and its habitat. It's not a design, it's a process. The quality of the design more or less automatically arises from the logic of the landscape layers and the way they are used and changed by man. H+N+S in this process always looks for synergy, for smart combinations to make a plan more interesting, valuable or realistic. The quest in each plan for added value, extra value, doing more than what it is supposed to do, could be regarded as the typical H+N+S trademark. You don't recognize our plans in terms of a typical H+N+S design language, with recurring shapes or forms. It is a way of working and attitude. To make it very concrete, it means first things first. First, from understanding the system, create the right conditions in the landscape system. Fit and then fit in the program before giving it a form. It's the crucial difference between to design and to shape or to form. This, of course, doesn't mean that shape and form are not important. Of course they are, they surely are, as in the case of the bypass of Kampen, for example. The landscape architect and landscape architectural design play a central role, not only at the scale of the river system as a whole, but also in the detailing of small-scale elements, relatively small-scale elements. Together with the architect we work with, in this case, again, next architect. That's what people see and experience in the end. But it doesn't start there, it's what naturally comes out of it. We often try to make a design that in the end is so logic that nobody recognizes it anymore as a design. As if the situation has long been there. We see, and I paraphrase my illustrious colleague Adriaan Geuze, the sublime in the ordinary. We believe the landscape should do the talking, should speak for itself, and when the landscape architect is long gone and forgotten. Let's move to innovative. Nowadays in the Netherlands often used and also misused word. Innovation is the buzzword. Everything is innovative these days. But what is innovative? What does it mean to be innovative? How do we as an office try to work on innovation? As I said, innovation takes time and persistence, first of all. It doesn't come by itself. It at least asks for an open mind, an open and research-based attitude. It thrives from a culture in which innovation and research are encouraged. H+N+S tries to be a design laboratory in which the conditions are there for innovation in research and design. And the large collection of professional literature in our office library is one of these conditions. It's a challenge to use the many years of experience the office has built up in the actual projects. In the mixed project teams, we deliberately try to organize a cross-fertilization between the expertise of the more mature members of staff and the professional expertise of our partners, and also with fresh ideas of young people. Focused on making discoveries that could lead to innovation. So the mentioned concept of creating conditions also goes for our own organization. Working as a design laboratory. In every project we try, as founder Lodewijk van Nieuwenhuizen often states, to do at least one invention. But innovation also sometimes just pops up. Almost falls in your lap by coincidence. You only have to notice it then, see the value of it. And this was the case with the project of Buitenschot at Schiphol Airport. It's stunning in its simplicity. It's a real H+N+S design, combining an innovative yet simple solution for an actual and relevant problem. Combining it with other programs, in this case recreation, and translated it into a beautiful new landscape with land art quality. The credits for all this go to my colleague, leading architect Lodewijk van Nieuwenhuizen, who worked on this together with artist Paul de Kort and engineers TNO and Witte and Bos. Let me tell you the wonderful story of Buitenschot, on the outskirts of the city of Hoofddorp, situated right in the heart of the Dutch Randstad area, close to Schiphol, Amsterdam's international airport. After the Polderbaan, Schiphol Airport's 5th runway was opened for operation in 2003, residents in the area were disturbed by ground noise, mainly low-frequency noise caused by our aircraft taking off when the engines are throttled up and were started. And it was concluded that a 10 decibels reduction would seriously reduce the noise to an acceptable level. Schiphol therefore started an international design competition called Create a Barrier to Silence. They launched it in 2008 and asked for the best, most innovative entry for a sustainable design for a sound barrier to reduce the noise caused by airplanes taking off. About a year later, in January 2009, Schiphol Amsterdam Airport announced the winner. Yes. The winner, Dutch entry, was selected from a total of 97 entries from 17 countries. The winning design was the Eco Barrier, submitted by Twan van Beuten, a local town planner who designed the Eco Barrier in his spare time. And he proposed a structure to be erected along the runway that will look like a huge tent, with an estimated reduction of around 9 decibels. The Eco Barrier consists of a glass fiber construction with a length of almost 2 kilometers and a height of approximately 14 meters. To achieve maximum effect, the sound barrier would have to be installed as close as possible to the source of the noise, which is of course the aircraft on the runway. During landing, the facility is not needed and for safety reasons should be folded down. This will also be the case with strong winds when the ground noise will fade away. The idea was also to collect Schiphol's sewage water in the tent and use it to feed a basin of algae that can be used for energy production as biofuel, providing enough capacity for some 600 households. So far the good news. In 2010, 1 year later, 1 year after the competition, Schiphol left the idea of the Eco Barrier mainly because of safety reasons. The idea was too complex and met too much opposition, leaving Schiphol with a huge problem. But salvation was on the way. Residents noticed that the noise was reduced when farmlands were plowed.
This because the low frequency sound waves are being dispersed by the cloud plane. This was the starting point for research into the noise-reducing landscape using artificial embankments. From this moment on, H+N+S was involved with designing this noise-reducing landscape called Park Buitenschot, situated on the edge of the city of Hoofddorp, between the runway and the houses. The design was an interactive process between the landscape designers of H+N+S, visual artists on the port, and technicians from both TNO, with experts in noise reduction technology and monitoring, and with Veen & Bos, with experts in cost calculation and feasibility. This team of experts was supervised by the owner and designer of the Buitenschot Park, the government's service for sustainable rural development, and by the client Schiphol Airport. This had never been done. There were no examples, so we had to do a lot of experimenting, modeling, and one-on-one testing. The design of the noise reduction park took a few stages. Our first models were anchored in the pattern of the polder, the Haarlemmermeer. We drew a clustered alternative and a dispersed alternative. The dispersed one proved more effective, but both modeling and testing showed that also this dispersed alternative alone could not produce the necessary 10 decibel noise reduction. So a complementary effort was needed on the location of Buitenschot, a planned park for Hoofddorp, green area you see on the left corner. There already was a design for this park, actually quite a nondescript green area, mainly for people to walk with dogs. The land artist Paul de Kort set us free to think about and design different patterns and get loose from this rigid polder structure. The combination of the two programs, recreation and noise reduction, led to a public maze, the noise labyrinth. The basic park element consists of a 3-meter high embankments that are 1.10 meters below the land surface and distribute the noise, forming a rib pattern. The 1 meter broad path between the ridges also serve as informal walking path. The park consists of a number of different spaces between the embankments. The heart of the park is formed by a 500 meter long and 100 meters wide open space, as you can see here. This offers ample space to be used as a playing field and during cultural events. In addition to the large space, there are also a great number of smaller enclosed areas scattered between the ribs. To the north and south, the grassy ridge structure thins out until it dissolves, so longitudinal pyramids distributed along the edges. Measurements and calculations have shown that the ground noise is distorted and dispersed as it were by oblique planes. It, as a matter of fact, proved to be very effective, even more effective than predicted by the experts in their calculations. And with some poetic license, one could even say that the invisible ground noise with the ground ridges is made visible. To conclude, where does all this lead us to? For an office to be brave, ingenious and innovative is no longer enough these days. The actual situation asks that designers find smart coalitions, organize themselves and position themselves right in the heart of the topic. Behind actual themes like coastal or river safety and energy transition, a complex reality is hidden, where various technical and disciplines contribute and have an important share in solving these complex matters to be dealt with. Deriving from it, moreover, with these complex themes, often many different interests have to be taken into account. In some cases, the interests of the parties involved are almost opposed. In this context, design is used to explore a range of possibilities and to integrate various solutions and interests into spatial concepts. As such, design mediates between the various parties involved. H+N+S, therefore, in every project works with an integral approach, focusing on the connection between actors and their interests. We focus in these complex matters on the design as the binding force, trying to draw together the input from the different disciplines in one plan. Subsequently, the designers try to examine in close conversation with the actors involved if and how one binding concept can be developed. In the last years, we've witnessed a growing need for such an integrative approach, both in terms of content and process in our projects. This leading role for us as landscape architects, as a spider in the center of its web, is made possible by the special role and unique position of the Dutch landscape architect. Elsewhere, the landscape architect is often only second or third in hierarchy. Behind planners or below planners, architects and others. Often asked to join a project along the way or in the end instead of right from the start. But in the Netherlands, the landscape architect self-consciously adopts a central position, or at least tries to. This is the result of, on one hand, the heritage of the 20th century land reclamations and land consolidations, and on the other hand, of a long tradition going back to the culture of our land to fight against water and the first water bodies originating from that already in the 13th century. And our tradition of land making and large-scale land reclamation in the 17th century, resulting in the famous Dutch polder landscape. It's also the result of our culture of the so-called poldering, of negotiating and always trying to find a compromise, which seems to be in our national DNA. It is in this tradition, the Dutch way, that our profession and with that we as an office can flourish. Another characteristic of this aspect is the wide range of topics that the landscape architect takes on and considers as his or her domain. Not merely public space design, squares, gardens and parks, but also sizable technical and social topics such as water safety, infrastructure and energy transition. Design is not considered the result of the process itself, but as a way of guiding the process, searching for new ideas and unexpected partners to accept, searching for relations between topics and skills, and asking new research for the next step. The room for the river projects in Kampen and Nijmegen are big interventions in the existing urban environment. And the open design process enabled people to grow accustomed to it, to get accustomed, to get used to the ideas and to see the benefits of it. And they did, as you can see. Finally, all this may very well sound like a smooth public relations backdrop. And that is completely against our nature, and I apologize for it. We actually hate to go around boasting about our project and make an exception on today's occasion, because the organization asked us to speak about our own work. We might be brave, we might be ingenious and innovative, and we try to be smart and persistent too, but most of all, we are humble. From tomorrow on, we gladly step back into anonymity and focus on the work to be done. There's a huge task waiting for us. As a matter of fact, there are huge tasks waiting for all of us. We're facing big transition assignments, moving towards a society based on a sustainable water, energy and production system. As we've worked patiently in a long time, over a period of decades, from the conceptual plan installed in 1987 via the Room for the River program all the way to the project of Nijmegen, only recently finished in Kampen, and the construction now, we now, after years of sowing the seeds with the Book of Landscape and Energy and the pamphlet of An Energetic Odyssey, look forward to concretely realize the energy landscape of the future. There's no time to waste. Let's go to work. Thank you.